After trying to give a definition of transdisciplinarity, of course, in education, as we saw in the previous session, we have to face the fact that if we accept this as a fact, we have to define skills, profiles, portfolios, project work, methodology, pedagogy, etc.
We have this Latin word, which is the trans, no? That talk about something that goes beyond. And in the case of transdisciplinary design, design transcends its own, disciplinary boundaries. What does it mean? It's so tough also to understand, no? How the deconstruct from the inside in the educational system some structures that are embedded in design professions. There is a genuine sense of care in the way we look at this possibility of transcending the discipline, and in this sort of notion of genuine care. Well, what is, the matter that we care about? And actually, I think that with the students and inside classes, we train ways of, sharing also the sense of caring about, the way we interact, or caring about the way we can create communities instead of, just teams. If I care of the word, I care about rights, the rights of future generations. And so one of the questions that maybe we can face all together with students within a class or inside academia and so on is, how can I make, how can I imagine that the legacy of what we are doing now here together could be valid at least for the 3 generations ahead?
I think working with students made me realize that we should try to get more concrete and not linger too much in theory. I think our main view on society these days is actually based on information that we get through various channels that is completely fragmentalized, simplified, polarized. So that means that also our view on society is fragmentalized, simplified, and polarized. And I think ultimately, if you are a designer, then of course you want to make a positive change. And so basically you are an agent of change for society as a whole. The thing is, if you want to do that, then of course you need to somehow break out of your own fragmentalized box of information and try to see all sides of society at once. So I'm quite sure that you are familiar with the work of Picasso, for example. If you look at his paintings, there are some striking examples. You look at a subject, maybe it's a woman, and then you realize that he actually painted the subject from all sides at the same time. So in a way, becoming a transdisciplinary designer is becoming a bit like Picasso, The main challenge here is to identify a problem. It's not really to find an answer, it's to identify a problem. If you propose a solution, if you create a design, then of course it is not for an instant in time, especially if you create infrastructure. If you create infrastructure, then it's here for a long time to stay. So how do you make that relevant also in the future? And therefore, I think it's very, very important to design from within a frame of reference that is based in the future. I think one of the key points is, I started to realize that it is almost impossible to teach. You can only do it. And so we try to come up not with the classic teacher-student patterns, but really work together in one big group. And we call ourselves a transdisciplinary team. And there is actually not really a differentiation between teachers and students anymore, which is a fantastic way to work.
Okay, if we are designing any attribute of human life, whether that is a building, whether that is an urban setting, whether that is access, And it gives back to your last session as well, which is, okay, you can go through the theory and you can use a transdisciplinary ideology to try to arrive at perhaps an ideal or something that is elevated beyond the world that we currently know. So I actually believe in my non-educational background that all of life is transdisciplinary, and our ability to succeed in whatever it is that we want to do is dependent upon just how spongy, open, and curious we are with every facet of life.
The risk of saying that, like, the future is transdisciplinarity and skills and disciplines have to be demolished. The risk is that we accelerate in the very dangerous direction of a nihilistic school where you say, you know what, everyone can do what, just be spongy and something will happen. To enrich a strong part that is the skill basement. So in what is I'm trying to give an interpretation to your ideas. What is suggestion from the practice is try to be the most open you can and try to force people to open up from the very strict disciplines boundaries, but pose them on a super strong basement and foundations. Otherwise, there is nothing then. It's sandy stuff.
But I think that is something I would, in a way, surpass, which is this dualistic vision where you have theory and you have practice. Because actually, transdisciplinarity really teaches us that there is no separation between the two. And this idea of transdisciplinarity has something very peculiar in terms of what agent has been added to the for example, multidisciplinary, or the terms that also before came out from the conversation. And this agent is a participation of people or communities that are not academic at all. And so, you know, first, there is no enough theory about what transdisciplinary is in general when applied to design. So what we do, what universities do all the time is testing methodologies. And in testing these methodologies, teaching methodologies, for example, you try also to create a situation in which the team or in the class or whatever, there are participants that are really not coming from the design field. So design can enter as a sort of tool that allowed us to really create, I call them like social material platforms, okay? No matter what is the outcome. It could be like, again, a device. It could be like a space for a conversation. It could be or an exchange. It could be the design of a relation with the other or the facilitation of a language. So you can embed technology, you know, robotics, or, you know, urban planning, but at the core, there is another way of looking at the future in a, I would say, not in a non-technocratic way, okay? Then technology, of course, is a tool. It doesn't have to become the core or the image of what we do.
Do you think transdisciplinarity or transdisciplinary design is actually nothing new? It's just a fancy term that was invented and now we pretend that it's something?
I mean, ideologically, sure, it's existed forever, but if you think about it, like, okay, you know how people come up with acronyms for everything? And in some, like, if you're not a part of that group, if you're not an engineer, you're not an accountant, or you're not whatever, and they say, oh, that's a SMAC. You know, have no idea what they're talking about. That's the whole point. You're not supposed to know. So the idea of transdisciplinarity is, it feels to me like urban survival.
Interdisciplinary design is let's imagine an apple, and you have all the worms that come there, and they all bite their own piece that they know from the apple, and maybe they leave something, who knows? And the actual product that comes out of it is basically the sum of its parts. It's very different if you think about transdisciplinary design. All the worms come to the apple, and the apple, I don't know, turns into a banana. I don't know. It's something completely different that is unexpected. Basically, it transcends what it used to be, and the sum of its parts becomes much more than just the parts on their own. And I think that is the essence of transdisciplinary design and how I see it. So I don't think, or at least I'm convinced that it's not just a fancy term for something that we've always done. I think there's always the need for a balance between generalists and specialists. In whatever case, and someone, of course, can be also both. Often I consider myself a specialized generalist. Do you think then the question, transdisciplinary design is something that is more a group thing than an individual thing, or it can be both according to you?
To me, it's very much like the action that everyone is doing in his phone, like zoom in, zoom out. I mean, whatever is your zoom level, it's wrong. You have to keep zooming in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. And when it comes to zoom in, it's specialist and individualist, or individual-based. When it's zoom out, the more you zoom out, the less you are able to control this. So you have to change methodology and open up to teams and groups, etc. But then the group as a whole, I think it's not able to enter in the specific piece of answer. So the exercise is not staying stable on the level of zoom, but do like this. And wherever it's super generic, it has to be super generic. And those frame has to be respected and then tested. Respected and explored and then tested. So this zoom out is testing, evaluating, and used to in order to look at the implications. And then the applications must be delivered through skills. So that's the thing. And so I don't think that it's a dualistic either one or the other.